What is in your mouth?
Welcome back to your local cat artist struggling with art block for the 100th time. You get to sit here with me and watch me ramble about my early 2000 stories while watching me draw more cats in the MS Paint art style. After making the last video where I let go of all of my worldly art attachments and go ham making art the same way I did when I was a child, my art block was instantly cured. Chef's kiss. So I'm gonna be making more of these guys today. I picked a selection of recently made art to transform into the mightily hated emo cat art style from 2011. Starting off strong and hitting a bit of nostalgia, I'm going to be reworking a comic page I drew a few years ago, but never continued. This was supposed to be a short-run comic that was based on Kestrel Star's entire backstory, from the moment she was wrongfully deemed leader all the way up to recent times when Stonefrost was born. This would have covered the whole flood and how the clans came to be, being a prologue to the whole thing. I figured it was a short enough story that it could be completed in less than 50 pages, and I thought it would be a good start to comic making. But for some reason I ended up losing motivation, and it just stayed as a single page and nothing more. As much as I really wanted to make a full-fledged comic, just a lot, and I didn't have the skill set to pre-plan, script, storyboard, or anything really. I was just gonna dive right into it the way that I used to and hope for the best. Well, that ended up being not the best idea, and it took all of the life out of me, hence why it never got complete, I guess. But like I said, it really made me think about my origins and where my interest in comic making started, which was to try and create comics for my Warriors OCs, as we so lovingly saw with Bloodflame and her squad. And long before that was Pokemon OCs doing silly tomfoolery and shenanigans, as we also lovingly saw with Jessica the Vulpix and her group of boys. Comic making is something that I used to really enjoy doing, so I thought it would be fun to try and redraw a specific set of panels as an old-style comic that I would have produced back in the day. One of the things I noticed most, and something that I also had to go back in and do a lot in the previous video, was change the proportions and the anatomy to fit what a younger art style would look like. I kept wanting to add shapes and curves where my 11-year-old self wouldn't even have considered them being. I had to go in and erase the line, remake it, because I wouldn't have done that. That's where the real part of the challenge comes in. It's purposely trying to throw away the information and knowledge that you've gained over the years and try to regress your art to a pure form. I think that's also why it helped me so substantially the last time I tried the challenge. My art block stems from feeling like I'm stuck in the same place forever and my art really isn't going in any positive direction. Me making the same type of art all the time is actually really stressful and I don't really get a break from it, so seeing and observing and translating and forcing my art to not be perfect is exactly what my brain needs to reset itself. So second up, I'll be tackling the first experiment with color that I have loosely opened up and made in a long time. The edgy man himself, Scourge. I made this for a Cringetober prompt, but I never actually completed the challenge, which I have a really bad habit of doing, and I didn't want to let this one go unseen. Playing with the bright saturated colors unlocked some hidden, forgotten about part of my brain, and it made me want to experiment even more with color from then on out. So I figured this would be a good target piece to work with. After literal years of making art and not being satisfied with colors, I sort of sat back and wondered why in the world everything looked so dull. I was shading with purple, not black, I made highlights, I was doing everything right. So why did everything look so muddy all the time? It stumped me and it led me to another serious bout of art block. That is until I started playing around with MS Paint and it reminded me of how I used to freely use saturated colors. It made me consider the origins of my interest in art and where my confidence came from back then. So let's go back in time for the 100th time to 2011, where I was drawing cats with 3 circles for a body and bright neon colors for the fur and patterns. Due to the pressing internet trolls and cringe culture, for years after making the infamous Bloodflame, who is actually related to Scourge, ironically enough, Scourge. I still don't actually know how his name's pronounced. Scourge is how I've been saying it, but Scourge? Okay, anyway. I was shunned for using bright and saturated colors and got told over and over that it was wrong to do so. So many of you all may remember how stressful it was to be an online artist and get knocked down for having unnatural colored OCs, sparkle cats or dogs, you know the deal. So after I was told so many times that bright colors were wrong, I ended up neglecting one of the most important and fundamental parts of developing an art style, working with color theory. I remember being in my freshman year of college in my intro to art courses, and when color theory was brought up, I quite literally groaned at the thought. it wasn't even that I didn't understand it. No, like I knew it was a thing, but I was oh so very convinced that I never needed it. That I, as an artist, could keep making art the way I wanted to, because at the time, I didn't see how muddy and nasty my colors were. I was so focused on getting things to look natural, quote unquote, that I neglected the idea of color in general. So when I was forced to learn color theory, well, more so add it to my assignments, I outright ignored it, and still, I somehow got a passing grade. We ended up having a lot of assignments center around the use of color in photography, painting, digital composition, digital media, etc. I quite literally BS'd my way through all of them just for the fact that I couldn't bring myself to use saturated colors. I think deep down, me being picked on the internet really did affect my art in the long run. So for that entire semester, I was just like seething in my small art brain because I could not face up to the fact that I had to use color in a professional manner. I had no idea why I was so stubborn about this, other than the fact that I was forced to stop using neon colors online due to them being labeled as an eyesore. This is another reason I wanted to use the Scourge piece, because in reality, it was sort of a nod towards neon edgy internet culture. Sort of like a, haha, cringe culture is dead, let's draw emo cats again kind of way. Moving on to our third piece, this one's a huge turnaround for me, ironically enough. Scooting closer to a bit of an art breakthrough story here, so bear with me. Like I said, I hated color theory, yada yada. I looked at all of these other wonderful abstract artists and absolutely enjoyed their work. I can't fathom why I was so avoidant to the idea that colors would have to look good with one another for your artwork to look good. It was only recently that I learned that the shadows are actually based on the environment that you're drawing your character in, and that the highlights weren't just one directional. And the fact that bounce light exists also changes the color of the shadows. Oh, and that shadows give off a colored light? Huh? It was a lot. I do plan on making a shading tutorial soon, but that's entirely off topic. It was only after playing around with the MS Paint art that I realized the reason I hated brighter colors is because it was talked out of me for so long, and people on the internet pushed so hard to not use bright colors when making characters, and I thought everything had to be muted and neutral, gray, blobby, and kind of gross looking. It made me really think about how the internet and cringe culture and the hatred towards saturated colors affected a lot of artists, because after bringing this topic up to a couple different artist friends, they were like, yeah, I also have this exact same issue. Looping back around to playing with MS Paint and playing with the saturated colors re-sparked my love for bright and vibrant things. We're also taught when we're younger that bright and colorful things are great, but as soon as you get a certain age, your parents or society or your family or whatever, whoever, tells you that you're not supposed to have the enjoyment of bright colorful things, and you have to tone things down. So as soon as I got out of that weird several year-long funk with hating saturated colors, I actually started making art with saturated colors again. And everything kind of exploded, and now my art has taken a totally different turn. I never thought it would have went in this direction. I went from creating really refined, specific colors with specific shading, fully rendered art pieces to sloppy, textured, oversaturated, messy combinations of colors that I never thought would look good with one another. That's why the second thing I chose to remake was probably one of the most dull artworks, and also the realization that my whole outlook on color was too flat, natural, and gray looking. I sat there for a few days and stared at this piece wondering what was missing. And finally on to the last remake for this video. For some reason, this last one kind of made me a little bit emotional. I'm not gonna sit here and get all sappy about how I love the franchise or how it's been such a formative part of my childhood, but I will say that seeing Warriors had turned 20 was a bittersweet moment. I think a lot about the butterfly effect and how getting into certain things and pulling inspirations from certain media really does form your art style and who you are as an artist, and I don't think I would have made it as far as I did without the incredible community around Warriors. Made a painting of the original three, Firepaw, Greypaw, and Ravenpaw, sitting by a river. And when I made it, I was just like, woohoo, congrats to Warriors for going on 20 years now. What an incredible win that must be for the authors and everyone who's put so much love and effort into the franchise. But it just affected me so much, and wait, okay, I said I wasn't going to ramble, and here I am rambling. So just ignore me and look at the visuals of me drawing a bunch of cats sitting by a river because they're really cool and they're just silly little guys. This one was fun because I didn't have much wiggle room at all. Didn't play with the colors or shapes or hues or angles or anything that I would normally do to make this my own and put a unique twist on it. What I love about the original is just how painterly I made them all look and how their patterns are airbrushed and everything looks so cool together. By redoing this, I'm stripping it down to its bare bones and thinking about which colors to isolate. And not only am I having to do that for the characters that are the central focus, I'm also having to do that with the background, because there's no way I could have ever pulled off a background this colorful and complex when I was younger, so I ended up lining a bunch of trees and making the most simple little kid river known to man. The same point comes up for this video just like the last, which led me into a whole new way of thinking. Why do we consider this art style to be bad? Why are simplified lines, colors, and shapes frowned upon? Why are the bright colors the bane of every artist's existence? It's the start of everyone's career, and rather than be shunned and pushed aside as quote-unquote cringe, it should be embraced and enjoyed as an inimitable, unique egg of an art style. Anywho, here's all the comparisons side by side, and I really hope you enjoyed this challenge just as much as I did.